who's here to welcome us this morning.
Thank you, Karen. Welcome to the city's HUBZone Bootcamp. The city's been working hard, specifically Karen and her staff. Karen leads our Department of Economic Development and Tourism. This is a great opportunity, I think, for small business owners. Small businesses, as I'm sure many of you know, are the backbone of our nation's economy, accounting for 65% of all jobs created in the last 17 years. The HUBZone program has been very instrumental in developing new businesses here in the city. We're very thankful for that program. As we work to be more business friendly, especially to small businesses in the city, we've worked to increase the size, the scope, if you will, of the HUBZone program, and I'm happy to announce that as of January 1st, the entire city will be a certified HUBZone. Thank you, Karen, for your hard work on that. As one who has worked in small business for the last 4.5 years, colleague here who has helped lead that business and grow it, I can tell you that the programs offered by the SBA are key enablers to help entrepreneurs pursue their goals. So, and I'll turn it over to Karen. Again, thank you very much for being here today, and enjoy it.
Thank you, Brad. Your advice to us on government business through the years has been very helpful, and we appreciate that. We have been working on HUBZone business for several years now, and this isn't our first program. We appreciate the support we've received from numerous members of our panel, and you will be seeing more work on this as the entire city becomes a HUBZone. We previously had 2 of our census tracts identified as HUBZones, and it just led to silly little complications when we were trying to assist a business in locating their business in the city. One side of the street was good, the other side wasn't. It's a little difficult to maneuver, but this gives us an opportunity to focus more attention on our marketing of the product and helping existing businesses grow their business through this advantage of federal contracting that's offered through HUBZone status. So stay tuned. We'll keep you on our email mailing list, and I hope that you find additional opportunities to join us for future programming. I think we'll see support from our office in your HUBZone application, and more education, as I said, and perhaps developing programs where multiple HUBZone businesses can support each other. I do want to introduce our panel. We're so pleased to have Mariana Pardo with us today. She is the director of the Small Business Administration HUBZone programming, so it's wonderful to have Mariana with us here today. She's been with us before. Support is really appreciated. We also have Randall Johnston. He's the Small Business Administration Area 2 Acting Director and Supervisory Procurement Center Representative for the Office of Government Contracting. A long title, but you can kind of discern his role in exactly bringing business to us. Brian Baker. Brian's the Executive Director of the Entrepreneurship and Business Development Center of the University of Mary Washington Center for Economic Development. And the center receives Small Business Administration support. Brian's been very tuned in to all sorts of small business issues in the city, of great support to our department. We appreciate that. Drew Thomas with Artra, a relatively new business here in the city, will be on our panel of businesses, working primarily in Veterans Affairs, contracting right now, but we'll look forward to hearing from Drew. Sean Hayes is with, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of your business. I didn't write it.
Life Cycle Construction
Of
Services.
course it is. And he's been in the city as a HUBZone business for 5 years now, and has been recognized for Inc. magazine for being such a rapidly growing business. We're very proud of that. Rebecca Rubin, who probably said goodbye to a little bambino and is just joining us, is President and Managing Partner of Marsdell Day. And just recently, Rebecca was recognized at the National HUBZone Conference as the HUBZone Corporate Citizen of the Year. And I think anybody who's familiar with Rebecca's work locally and nationally recognizes her role in engaging in our community. So we appreciate everybody's participation in the panel today. And I'm going to turn it over to Richard Tremblay, our Assistant Director of Economic Development, who will be moderating our panel. Before I do that, let me recognize Amy Paragoy, who is managing the tech back in the corner. She manages tech in a larger sense because Amy has been a primary player in our office in launching a new economic development website, fredericksburgva.com. We'll have information on HUBZone status, the application process, and please visit that. And I thank Amy for her role in that. Sorry, Richard, here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning. Good morning. James Williams is here from the Small Business Administration. James, you want to stand up? James will be staying afterwards and be available for questions. James is from the Richmond office. We've got about an hour's worth of presentations by our 6 panelists this morning. Mariana Pardo, who directs the HUBZone program at the SBA office in Washington, is going to give an overview of the program, what the certification requirements are, what the benefits of the program are, and touch on the city's, all the city becoming a HUBZone, whereas now just portion of the city is a HUBZone. Randall Johnson is going to talk about strategies for obtaining government contracts and give you some good references to search tools and reference tools. And both their PowerPoint presentations will be posted on our website tomorrow, fredericksburgva.com. And if you just click on resources, HUBZone, you can find more information on that page about the HUBZone and those PowerPoints. Brian Baker, part of what the Small Business Development Center does at Eagle Village here in the city is they've got the government assistance, government contracting assistance center. So he's going to talk about the resources that that center provides. And then we've got 3 of our businesses, as Karen mentioned, HUBZone businesses that are going to talk about what they do, a little bit about their companies, why they located their business in a HUBZone, what benefits the HUBZone program has been to them, and perhaps some tips about compliance, because this is a program that requires recertification on, I think, a 3-year cycle. So we're happy to have all our panelists here. Appreciate you taking your time this morning. And we'll start out with Mariana Pardo, the director of the HUBZone program.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm there. Good morning, everyone. There is a lot of information, but I'm going to, I only have 10 minutes, and I know that Richard's going to keep me to it. We also, I want to alert you all that we do have, we've opened up an office hours for HUBZone, and the information is in the PowerPoint. And the reason why we open up the office hours is because we find that when we go on presentations, there is so much information, and then when you're getting ready to apply, or maybe you already applied, but you heard something in the presentation that kind of questioned, you know, in your mind, some eligibility issue, at least you know that certain days during the week, at certain times, you can call and there will be a live person, one of us. Sometimes I'm the one that's staffing it, and sometimes a couple of members of my team too. So that we're finding, we just deployed it last week, and we're hoping that we're going to provide a different level of assistance to the companies. How many here are HUBZone certified, by the way? Good, okay, good. It's a program that is a little bit tough to manage because of the residency requirement and the principal office requirement. And unlike other programs, like for example, how many of you are familiar with the 8A program? Great. That's the other certification program that SBA is authorized to manage, and is the only certification program besides HUBZone that is, provides a vehicle for government contracting. All the others, like women-owned business, service-disabled vets, small business, all those are self-certifications. You know. But unlike other programs, if you don't plan ahead as to how you're going to keep at least 35% of your employees residing in a HUBZone, you're going to fall out of compliance, and you have to be in compliance all the time, not only when you come up for recertification. So it's very important to understand that, and how do you really tie that employee to their house or their apartment in the HUBZone is tricky, and the business owners that we have here will provide you with some ideas. The purpose of the program was basically exactly what Richard's agency and all of you are doing, is really to look into the most disadvantaged areas of the country and provide capital investment and provide job opportunities to the people that live in these very poor areas of the country. As you can imagine, in some areas of the United States, it's quite a task at very tall order, because in some areas you encounter areas where most of us would not want to go to work to. There's a lot of crime in some of these areas. In some areas, the employees may or may not have the qualifications. Maybe I already have employees. Maybe I'm a well-established small business. Maybe I have 100 employees, and I'm looking into the HUBZone program. How am I going to achieve that 35%? How am I going to encourage my current employees to move into areas that in some parts of the country may not be the most secure or the prettiest, etc. Okay, so those are the type of things that add an extra layer of complexity to the program. But it provides a vehicle. The advantage of the program is, besides that it feels good to do that for our communities, it also provides a vehicle for additional contracts, which Rendell is going to mention. It provides a vehicle for setting aside contracts that really are set up only for HUBZone certified firms. So your competition gets reduced, and the business owners will let you know a little bit more about that. So the eligibility requirements are all geared into that geographical area, in these poor areas. So the businesses have to have that principal office in a HUBZone. Now, what is a principal office? A principal office, let me ask the group, is the principal office where the owner works, or where the headquarters is, where I keep my records, or where the greatest number of the employees work at? Remember that this is for economic development. So what do you think? Is it where the owner works, or where the greatest number of the employees work?
Greatest number of employees.
Excellent. Greatest number. And why is that? It's because we want more people to be reporting at that principal office so that they can buy that sandwich across the street, and they can kind of start that multiplier effect, Now, obviously, for those businesses that have services, construction, oh my goodness, if you have most of your employees working at that principal office, you're going to go bankrupt, right? Because you have to service your clients. You're going to have, if you're a janitorial firm or IT consulting, you're going to have the majority of your employees are actually going to be working in job sites. So when that occurs, it's perfectly fine. When you're doing the calculation for the principal office, you basically are excluding all those employees that are working in job sites. And you're going to basically look at, okay, I have, let's say, 5 that carry kind of the administrative stuff, and where are those working at? If I only have one office, and that office is in a HUBZone, it's easy, right? It's over, that's fine, that's my principal office. It gets tricky when, let's say that I have 2 offices, and I have one that is not in a HUBZone, one that is in a HUBZone. I need to make sure to keep the majority of those overhead employees that we call, right, working at that principal office. 35%, also very important, is at least 35% of our employees need to reside in a HUBZone. Now, what does that mean? It means that they can reside in a HUBZone, right? Any HUBZone. So let's say that I have a pretty large firm, and I have contracts all over the country. It doesn't matter where they live, so long as they're in a HUBZone. So if I have 100 employees and I have a couple of contracts, one is here in the area, and then I have another contract in, let's say, Oklahoma. But in this area, let's say that I have 10 employees that work in this area, and none of these employees that work here reside in a HUBZone. But the ones that are in Oklahoma, I have, 70. That's perfectly fine, because HUBZone is a national program, national contracting program. So that's perfectly fine. Now, let me ask you a question just to trick you. So you remember the definition of principal office, right? Greatest number of employees, where they work, and I can exclude those job site employees. For the 35% calculation, can I exclude the employees that work in job sites? Yes or no? Huh? Is anybody, there's a lady down there that said no. And why not, ma'am? Bingo. So when we are excluding them, it's for the purpose of the principal office calculation. We don't care where they live, in a sense, right? When we're doing the calculation for the principal office, what we're worrying is where they work at. We don't really care where they live. But when we are going and calculating the 35%, we need to take a look at the whole universe of my employees, regardless of where they work. So keep that in mind. I know that I'm going fast because there's a lot of information. There will be questions and answers, and I'll stay, around a little longer. The ownership and control is, and employees are really almost everybody. Employee is someone that works at least 40 hours in a month. So that's pretty good. So long as an employee works 40 hours in a month, they're considered an employee. Now let me ask you a question. If I'm an owner, usually in a small business, an owner doesn't get paid most of the time. So I'm an owner, and I work 300 hours a month, and I don't get paid. Am I considered an employee? Yes. Yes. If I'm an owner and I get paid and I work 40 hours a month, isn't that sweet? Let's say that I work 40 hours a month and I get paid. Am I considered an employee and I'm an owner? Yes, 40 hours a month. Correct. Volunteers are not considered employees. If I hire you, for example, and I say, when I start making money, I'll pay you. And you sign an agreement, and no, you're going to be a volunteer, and you're not going to be counted. Okay? Ownership and control. I'm sorry, ma'am? Independent contractors, that's a good question. If I pay them on 1099, and it's truly an independent contractor, arm's length, basically I'm paying for a particular blueprints, for example, and I don't supervise that person, and it's a 1099, they will not be counted. But if I have a 1099 that I supervise, that I really require that person to come to my staff meetings, and I pay them on cash, 1099, just because they're able to then kind of make deductions on their own, that borders a little bit more into an employee, and we would have to do an analysis that is a little bit more extensive. They may or may not, so we need to take a look at all the facts. But most of the time, they are excluded from the count. Ownership and control, the company needs to be owned and controlled at least 51% by U.S. citizen. The ownership needs to be direct and conditional. And what that means is, I'll give you an example. Let's say that I have a corporation, and my corporation really doesn't qualify for the program because of the qualifications that I just mentioned, the requirements. But I really like the HUBZone program, so I decide to open a limited liability company and hire employees, and I have it, I have all the elements for me to qualify for the program. The only thing is that my tax advisor asked me to form the LLC so that the corporation, my corporation that I own 100%, owns the LLC, okay? So I go ahead and apply. So when the SBA asked me for my supporting documentation, the manager of my LLC is my corporation. But remember, I own the corporation 100%, right? So then I get a decline letter. And I go, what's up with that? Now, why was I declined on ownership? I own the corporation 100%. My corporation owns the limited liability company. Why do you think I got declined? The corporation is not an individual. It's not a direct ownership. Thank you, sir. Exactly. It's not a direct ownership. And it doesn't matter that I own the corporation 100%. The corporation is not a person. All right, good. Size, obviously the business needs to be small under size standards. So if you have more than one business that you're considered to be affiliated, we will add the receipts or the number of employees depending on that NAICS code and to determine that it's small. Frankly, that is something that we don't encounter too many problems with. Whenever we have a business that may be exceeding the size, we refer it out to the size specialist for an analysis. Are there any, by the way, any tribally owned firms here today? No, okay, because there's slightly different requirements there that I would basically cover. Maintaining the HUBZone certification, what I said earlier, is really very, very important because the program doesn't provide for falling out of compliance. So, if I have 100 employees and 35 reside in a HUBZone, and one person goes back to school, leaves the company, or moves across the street to a non-HUBZone, I fall below, and I'm supposed to really voluntarily decertify in a sense, because I no longer meet the requirement. So it's very, very important to plan ahead, and you're going to hear later today strategies that you can use to plan ahead. The responsibilities of the companies to SBA is to let us know of any material changes. So if you change ownership, if you change principal office, you need to let us know. And most of the time, when companies move to another principal office, they tell us, and then we process that, and they don't lose certification, so long as they're compliant. We just basically are updating the records and evaluating and just documenting the file. I wanted to concentrate a little bit. Oh, I have good news actually. This is good karma, because today I'm going to tell you something that is really, really nice. I told Richard earlier. Remember earlier today, this gentleman, the vice mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, the vice mayor was mentioning January 2013, we're going to have new census tracts. But actually, we advanced it. We advanced it to October 1st. So as of October 1st this year, next week, we are incorporating the new qualified census tracts. The tricky thing is you're going to have to do a little bit more work with the website. This is the way that it is right now. Now, until the maps are fully updated, because it's a huge change. So the contractor right now is using, is basically geocoding all these areas throughout the country. And the maps will reflect these new areas probably by the end of October or so. So until then, you can do your research. Going to this link is the HUD, is the Housing and Urban Development website. They have a map, and that notice also is in our website in the SBA. They have a map that displays the qualified census tract based on the 2010 census. And why do we have more qualified census tracts? Well, the reason is that more of us have been answering the American Community Survey. That's really what HUD uses to qualify a census tract. It's not just because they go around and talk to all of us and we say, oh, this is an area that should be. No, more of us, more residents, the work that you've all done really advocating for people to respond to the American Community Survey has really helped these communities become qualified. And it's not only good for HUBZone, so that all of you can take advantage of that, but to a lot of other programs that make this area now eligible for different types of programs available through the state and the federal government, etc. So the American Community Survey, when HUD analyzed the average that spanned 2006 through 2010 American Community Survey, they determined that there was that requisite poverty line and the median household income required for the qualified census tract. So when you go to this website and you plug in addresses, if it tells you that they are, trust that, and go ahead and you can go ahead and apply, and we will, you have to still print the maps. Unfortunately, we're still paper-based, but go ahead and apply. Don't wait until January. If the address, let's say that right now you have an employee that is in a HUBZone, because remember this is a national program, so you may have employees in DC and Maryland and West Virginia or whatever, California. If you have an employee that right now is in a HUBZone and you go to this map and it says that it's not, don't worry about it. And I'm going to use a new word that I just learned the other day. Don't fret. Don't fret. Because what is going to happen is that address is going to be redesignated for 3 years from October 1st, 2012. So it will be until October 1st, 2015. Okay? So obviously you will have to make some plans, encourage that employee to move, or et cetera, but at least you have that breather room. Yes?
An area designated because I have an employee that lives in Richmond County, which is here, and the designation was going to be reevaluated October 1st. So what you're saying is that it's still good for 3 more years?
Good question. And the question is, if I have an employee in an area that says that it's redesignated until October 1st, 2012?
Yeah.
Okay, if I have an employee where I put the address, it says, this area is good until October 2012, it means that it expires. So go into this one and see if it's newly redesignated. Most of the time it expires. It's usually how much more?
Couple more minutes.
Couple
If you
more
could
minutes. Yes.
end on touching on the national contracting in the hub zones.
Yes.
The track record.
Oh, yes, definitely, yes, so then you can, this is, the reason why I have, you will read about protests in the, wow, this is a very interesting little,
Amy will advance it
yeah,
for you.
okay, go more, another one, right there. Okay, this is the history of the contracting dollars that were awarded to HUBZone since inception, and we never achieved the 3% statutory. By law, we're supposed to achieve 3% of all contracting dollars. But even with that, I mean, as bad as 2011 was, which was only 2.35 of the total contracting dollars, we went to $9.9 billion. The current portfolio of HUBZone certified firms is a little over 5,000. So there's a lot of opportunities there. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for firms to become certified, and the competition is not as big as it used to be, you know, a few years back. So I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm going to be available for questions later on.
Thank you, Mariana. And this PowerPoint will be on our website tomorrow, so you can look at it, and there's a number of links in the program you can take advantage of. Randall Johnston is the Acting Area 2 Director and Supervisory Procurement Center Representative for the SBA's Office of Government Contracting in Washington. Appreciate you being here this morning. Randall's going to talk about strategies for getting government contracting. Thank you, Randall.
Good morning. This is very important for your business to really focus on. And that's why I'm here to really to give you some of the tools that you may not be aware of. Some you may be aware of, but they're not taking full advantage of it. So let's just dive right in, so I only have 15 minutes. Okay, your starting requirements of HUBZone is to really understand your NAICS codes, North American Industrial Code. It's the primary means of identifying the requirement in your company's scope and capability. It also is a coding system the federal government uses to track procurement data and budget. So if your NAICS code is not correct in CCR, now SAM, you have troubles already just starting out. The way you need to make sure you have the right NAICS codes assigned to your business is to visit the Census Bureau website, as I have up here, and just make sure you have all the scope of your work in your registration. Okay, and you can do that by querying it at the Census Bureau website. I find a lot of small businesses that will have a primary NAICS code, but they won't have any other NAICS codes in there. I'm troubled by that because they'll lose business. And the way they lose business is you have government officials going into SAM, CCR, DSBS database, looking for small business capability, and you're not in the listing. So it's very important for you to make sure you have the right NAICS codes for your business, okay? Next slide, please. Okay. As a new HUBZone, you gotta make sure you're registered properly. It's now the SAM website. So if you've been in CCR for the last year, 2 years, or new, you need to go into SAM now and register and readdress your registration. SAM was implemented 2 months ago, and so there's a lot of hiccups that are created from implementing a new consolidated ecosystem. SAM is a consolidation of CCR, ORCA, and a couple other initiatives. So it's very important for you to go to SAM, and I mentioned it up here as a website you need to update your company's registration data. Next slide. I mentioned the Business Partners Network because that's a centralized location for you to find out, hey, what's happening to government websites that manage my data, my company data. This is a website that will tell you, hey, what's happening to CCR? When's the migration going to occur? Or FPDS Ops. Is there any new capability that FPDS Ops will provide my company? PEPRS, Past Performance Information Retrieval System. Once you get a government contract, how does that affect me? This can provide you a little bit of information about what's happening to these government systems that document your company information, your past performance. Next slide. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the tools you need to be aware of. If you're already aware of the tools, you need to really harness these tools. And the first one is the Federal Procurement Data System. Okay, so FPDS, MG for short, is a database that tracks current procurement data federal-wide for the past 3 years, okay? And you can actually register as a member of the public and look at this procurement data. You can look at the procurement data and you can actually query it immediately through the Google type search tool that they provide. And it'll capture all the current contracts in the area that you choose. It could be a state, it could be all of the United States. It could be based on the NAICS code. So it allows you to drill down to certain areas that you might be interested in. I would personally drill on the NAICS code first and see how many contracts are out there under your business, so you can see the potential. The whole point of the FPDS is you learn what the government's buying, where, how much, the trend. And really what you're doing is you're looking at trend analysis. You're looking at how, hey, how can I go into this market in this geographical area? I didn't realize that my particular capability is found over here in Richmond or up in New England somewhere. I want to pursue that. Next slide. So FPDS provides leads for you. Okay, so current procurement data provides U.S. government contract activity. The address and the point of contact is providing you a starting point for your business development and marketing of your business. All right, so when you go to FPDS, you register as a public user. You start utilizing the tool. You start querying on NAICS code. You find out, oh wow, I have all these listings of current contracts. I have points of contact that's contained in this data, and I can go ahead and find out when they're going to release new forecasted procurements related to your business. And this is, like, again, I can't emphasize it enough. If you're not utilizing this tool, you're giving up business. You have to go beyond your current networking capability to look into this and really take ownership of FPDS data for your own business. Next slide. FPDS is value added. It provides buying trends, what the government is buying and how often. It provides small business representation data, who, what, and how many small businesses are doing business with the federal government. That's going to help you figure out how to team, joint venture. That's a big one, right? Because a lot of times you can get a primary contract through a joint venture or teaming arrangement. Next slide. I believe the FPDS for HUBZone or for any small business is a critical success factor. Why? You can't ignore this valuable database. And your firm must invest the time and resources to understand how to query and interpret that data. If you have to hire somebody to do it, do it. Again, I emphasize analyzing buying trends will lead you to small business representation data. You'll find out who and how many small businesses are doing business with the federal government. It also will tell you what the small business community is selling to the government. Next slide. The next tool, critical tool, is the Dynamic Small Business Search Database. Okay, the SBA houses that database, and it's linked directly to CCR, or now SAM. Okay, DSBS provides valuable data for who, what, where for all registered SBA set-asides, which can help in the development of partnering or teaming arrangements based on your NAICS code. FPDS is going to give you what the government's buying and where, and how I can focus on my energies in that, where DSBS is going to tell you who my competition is, who my future potential teaming partners are, or can be. Very critical tool to utilize. It's really an enhanced query tool. And if you're not using it, you need to use it today. And find out who your competition is first, and then also find out how you can team with these folks. Next slide. Okay. SBA also has another tool called Subnet. Okay. And this particular tool allows you to do two things. You can look for subcontracting opportunities, and you can post your own solicitation requirements to get subcontractors. So right now, I think the website is kind of focused a little bit in the construction area. I've noticed a lot of solicitations that are put on there. So apparently, when Subnet, I think it was called ProNet at one time, Subnet basically, I think, was marketed towards the construction community. You'll see a lot of that on there. But really, this tool could break in, right, get you a contract or a subcontract. In this case, a subcontract right away, without doing too much market research. So I really recommend that you visit the website. Might want to put a solicitation on there and see what kind of responses you get, what kind of potential teaming arrangements you could get for your company, your HUBZone. Next slide. I think everyone is aware of federal police ops, but I still mention it because it's a critical tool for doing government contracting. That's the primary means for soliciting government requirements. So if you're not registered there, you need to be. You need to be registered and receive emails on all the NAICS codes that you put in there. And that's why I go back to the original NAICS code address. If you're missing a NAICS code, you're going to miss an opportunity in FedBizOps. So make sure you're aware of FedBizOps, that you are registered there and receiving email notices. Next slide. Another government point of entry site that you want to do overseas work is the Joint Contingency Contracting System. It's the principal GPE site for soliciting industry to meet overseas requirements. So if you want to expand the overseas market, you can do that. You can go there, register, and receive solicitation announcements for that. Next slide. And finally, I just wanted to emphasize breaking into the government networks. Know who your PCR is in the area that you have your company. You need to know who your PCR is and your CMR is. Up here is a field staff directory that you can look at and find out who that is, and start networking with them and working with them. Because what they'll do is they can lead you to a forecasted procurement, a matchmaking event, industry day, anything that would encourage the opportunity for you to either become a prime or a subcontractor. Next slide. The SBA website itself has a Google tool on there, and we just implemented about a year ago. You go to the SBA website, you type in your zip code, and you come up with all the different resource partners that are available to you, SCORE, SBECs, Women Business Center, etc. Next slide. And you know, and that includes PTAX. Next slide. Okay, so I just wanted to emphasize that you need to really make sure you're networking with your government resources to help your business out and to get those leads, to get those potential opportunities. Next slide. Make sure you're always updating your SAM. And make sure you know, once you have a government contractor, or if you're even a subcontractor, make sure you check out peepers, because you might be rated and you don't even know it. And make sure that you're rated properly. That's why I emphasize past performance databases the government has. The Department of Defense has CPARs, and the government as a whole has peepers. So when a contracting officer goes in there and needs to look at past performance, that's what they do. They go into peepers and look at the past 3 years. And if your business in there or your partners in there, you need to know that they have good performance, right? And I think that's about it. Next slide. Let's see. Any questions? Got an email address, phone number, or BlackBerry phone number. You can call me anytime you want. Ask any questions. I can help assist you in your business. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. A lot of good links there. Thanks for all that information. Brian Baker is Executive Director for Entrepreneurship and Business Development at the university's Center for Economic Development at Eagle Village. And Brian also, as I mentioned earlier, heads up the Small Business Development Center, and it's a wonderful resource for small business in the region. And Brian and his staff can assist with many of the issues that Randall and Mariana have talked about earlier today. Brian, welcome.
For those of you who aren't familiar with the SPDC, it's been an entity at the University of Mary Washington now for 20 years, and it provides consulting, management training, and research on a generalized basis. As Richard had mentioned, as a division of the SPDC, we opened something called the Government Contracting Assistance Center about 4 years ago. Now, to digress momentarily, and Randall, you'll forgive me, I'll drop back to the CCR. At that time. 4 years ago, we actually did an investigation of how many federal contractors there were in the region, and that number came out to about 600. It didn't pick up all of the consultants and the experts that were working from home that were 1 or 2 person businesses, because the Virginia Employment Commission data only publishes those companies that are filing on scale over 2. So we went into the Central Contracting Registry and mined that data to find out exactly how many small companies were providing services to the federal client in the area. And that number profoundly came up to be over 2,000. So that was really the inspiration and the motivation for setting up a higher level government contracting assistance capability. We did not do that on our own. We partner with the Virginia Department of Business Assistance, and we partner with George Mason University's Procurement Technical Assistance Center for federal contracting capabilities. And some of the things that you can expect are, for example, as Randall had mentioned earlier, identify your NAICS codes. That's really what your orientation is to the marketplace, your capability statement. The next thing that they provide is also support on mining FedBiz ops for what those opportunities are that match with the NAICS codes that you have. And you can also perform competitive intelligence to find out who is competing in your sphere and where you may be able to get a toehold in doing some business with the federal government. Now, you heard Mariana and Randall both mention the power of teaming. And there are two principles that we would want you to walk away with as takeaways. And one is, as you mount these certifications, whether you're a woman-owned small business, whether you're a veteran, or excuse me, a disabled veteran owned small business located in a hub zone, you can actually stack all those designations. And by doing that, it makes you a more compelling buy under procurement goaling system for federal buyers. The second thing is, with teaming, as you merge certifications, as you work with higher level companies that have credibility in the federal marketplace, gives you an opportunity to get into some type of federal contracting much more easily. Give some credibility to that. New announcements. We were awarded a small amount of money from the Jobs Act, and so we will be using that funding to begin what we call the Government Contractor Academy. And this is going to be the higher level training that we think is needed to support the Government Contracting Assistance Center. So we look forward to hiring that private contractor to bring those services in 2013. And I think the last thing I have, for those of you who are involved in small business innovative research, anyone here involved in those issues? Oh, I think Rebecca will address that. We also have a capability using Shine Group out of Charlottesville to also provide you with some consulting in that area as well. So, anyone have any questions? All right, very good.
Thank you, Brian. We've got three businesses, HUBZone certified businesses on our panel. The first is Rebecca Rubin, president of Marsdale Day. Her office is located on Princess Anne Street, just west of the downtown. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you. So there is this moment when you realize how important having a competitive advantage really is. And for me, that was about 10 years ago. Just after I had started my business, I'd been running it for about a year, working like a dog, and waiting for, the big end of year mashup on our funding stream. And it was just nothing like what I thought it was going to be. And to be honest with you, I struggled a little bit with whether or not to enroll in a set-aside program, like a HUBZone program. And it has nothing to do with whether I believe in the principles of the program, because I do, and I want to get back to that in a minute. It really has to do with, I wanted people to choose my company because they believed in my company and not because I had some special advantage. So I had to think my way all the way through that. But I got there pretty quickly because the reality is the world is a big place and there's an enormous number of other companies that you're competing against unless you do something to self-define. The HUBZone program I chose because to me it represented the best ethical and social investment of my time in areas of high unemployment and low income. That's a real passion of mine. It meshed extremely well with the values of the HUBZone program, and I will tell you honestly, that is what keeps you going in the program, because there will be years that you'll win contracts because of it and years you won't. And so there has to be a sustaining something that keeps you involved. The HUBZone program has been really terrific for my company. It has enabled me to grow from a one-person, sort of one desk, one phone, one client situation back in about 2002 to just over 100 full-time employee firm with its principal office located here in Fredericksburg, and then 5 other locations across the country as well. And I do attribute a lot of that to the HUBZone program and to the fact that the set-aside competition allows you to compete against 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 other firms, but not 5,000. And so the constriction in that marketplace is tremendously important. We are also, my company, Marsdale Day, is also women-owned, and it's small, both of which are also set-asides. But those have not been as important to me in growing the company as the HUBZone program. And so that's the first thing I want to share with you, is that I think it's a tremendously valuable program. The second thing is that what is happening here today with representatives from DC, the administrator of the HUBZone program, and the representation from the Richmond District Office is phenomenal. I do not believe that you find that anywhere else at this point in the country. This is a very unusual situation that's going on here today, and it's happening because the city has taken the steps to engage with these individuals, and that is an extremely proactive thing that they've done. So if you haven't been in the program, you might not be able to appreciate this, but please take my word for it that these people are tremendously valuable resources. And when you have questions, and when they say they have office hours and they're available for counseling, they will talk to you, you should take advantage of that, because that did not really exist for a number of years. Now it does. Not only are they in their office to talk to you, they're also right here. So really, no kidding, that's a big deal. The other thing I just wanted to share with you is that I know you've heard a lot today about requirements of the program, and it makes it sound really complicated. But actually, I think in the end, you just need to remember there's two really main things to focus on. You gotta have a principal office, you gotta know what it means, and you gotta make sure you're meeting the residency requirements. Those are your two big compliance factors. The one other thing that sort of was mentioned, but needs to be, I think, stated more clearly, is that while you can register in a wide variety of NAICS codes, you don't just get to sort of pick what your principal code is. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it really is the code to which the majority of your revenues aggregate. And so you need to be clear what your principal code is. I think the other thing I just want to share with you, and this is based on now, gosh, 9, 10 years of experience in the HUBZone program, is that we're not a company that's just recruiting locally. We do a lot of that. About half our staff is locals drawn from universities and other places, but we're also recruiting nationwide. So we're pulling people from the West Coast, we're pulling them from colleges and universities across the United States, we're bringing them here to Fredericksburg, and we're showing them the town, and we're showing them the countryside, and we're showing them the city. And we're getting them to stay here because for them it's a quality of life issue. It's interesting to me that there's such a lure for them. A lot of it is, it's affordable, it's beautiful, it has culture, it has history, it has music and art. So when I bring people here, part of it is, yes, I'm trying to build a HUBZone business, but part of it is I'm trying to give them a quality of life that you can't get in a lot of places. So for us at Marsdale Day, this has been kind of a nice concoction of stuff that's worked well together. I'd like to also just offer that if any of you ever just wants to talk about what it's been like to sort of live through this experience, I'm more than happy to do that. Call me anytime. And I don't know, Richard, if there's anything else you wanted me to touch on, otherwise I'll hand the mic over.
Thank you, Rebecca. We'll have Rebecca and the other panelists' contact information on our website as well. And Rebecca and her senior staff has been very helpful to our department to help educate us. They've been in the program for 10 years about some of the ins and outs and make some introductions, so we really appreciate all the help you've been to get us ramped up. Drew Thomas is president of Artra, a new business in the city and new HUBZone business. They're in the Westwood Office Park on Route 3 near I-95. So Drew is just getting ramped up in the HUBZone program. You've been certified a year or so? Not even a year. Welcome. Appreciate you being here.
Good morning. What I want to say is, of course, forming a new business and getting going and, everything that ties into the business is always a struggle. It's never easy. But one of the reasons, similar to Rebecca has a passion for what she does and why she does it. One of my reasons for getting, okay, maybe I'm too tall. I don't know how close it is.
Hold the mic a little further away.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. But one of the reasons I wanted to get into the HUBZone program was because growing up with meager means, in a sense, I wanted to be able to give back. And you hear that term all the time, giving back to the community. But I truly wanted to be able to help those that are less fortunate. And one of the ways I could do that is through the HUBZone program. I am a service-disabled veteran, and while that will help me grow my business, again, I wanted to be able to give back to others. So directly, I have not been awarded a HUBZone contract, but I've been able to help another HUBZone, another larger firm in meeting their HUBZone number. So if it makes sense in that, bigger companies, they win contracts and they have to meet their 3% goal with the HUBZone program. So they bring in a HUBZone company, and maybe it's a checkbox for them, but also it helps the company if you cannot win the direct award. My company I formed in 2001. I wanted to train and assist in network and systems administration type duties. And while I'm able to do that and go forward, my primary NAICS right now is based on homes to homeless veterans. It's the EUL program through the Department of Veterans Affairs. So what we do is anything that the Department of Veterans Affairs wants done to renovate or to help build and renovate a property that they have sitting on a VA compound, VA lot, we go out and we talk to, I'm having more problems than anybody else, right? We talk to the developers, and we get whatever inspections done and feed that information back to the VA. So, like I said, while we were formed as an information technology company, you know, I can tell you further how I got into the real estate side of things, and basically it was based on investing, you know. So, that being said, you know, I had a lot of notes I was going to speak from. I could tell you the history, I could tell you, you know, everything else that we do, but, you know, when Rebecca started speaking about the passion and why she does it, you know, for me, going after a HUBZone certification was one that I did because I wanted to help the less fortunate. I could have continued to operate out of my home office, my basement, because there's no requirement for me to be on site currently. So I continue, what I do now is I look to the university and I look to the city and I talk to individuals, you know, looking at internships to try to recruit within the HUBZone, because I'm trying to bring in people that understand networks and understand technology, so that when the day comes that I am awarded an information technology contract, then I can, you know, fit the needs. As a matter of fact, I'm interviewing a guy tomorrow who lives in a HUBZone, and primarily he works for another company, but I'm gonna hire him for at least 40 hours a month as a networks person. And that's one of the ways that you can do things. You know, I'm gonna keep him on 40 hours a month, and he will help me meet my numbers in the HUBZones, in the hub, you know, 35%. So hope you understand what I'm getting. So, okay, well, that's basically what I wanted to say. So thank you very much. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Drew. Thanks very much. Sean Haynes is president of Lifecycle Construction Services. His office is on Route 1 near Eagle Village. His firm does design build work principally for the Navy, but also does state work and private work. And they also have a specialty in energy performance contracting. Welcome.
Good morning, everybody. So I started the business in 2007. We do, as Richard said, design build work primarily for military and other federal clients. Got our HUBZone certification in 2008. And since that certification, we've been able to procure over $500 million in long-term contracts with the Department of Defense in the HUBZone program. So obviously the HUBZone program has been tremendously beneficial for our company. We have a principal office located here. We also have another office in Savannah, Georgia that is also in a HUBZone. And we have about, employees fluctuate as workload does, but we have about 30 full-time employees. And you know, because of the HUBZone program, we were named the fastest growing business in the DC region by Washington Business Journal. And we made the Inc. 500 as the 157th fastest growing company in the nation, excuse me. And none of that would have been possible without the HUBZone program and the benefits it provides. So getting your HUBZone certification is the first step. You know, just because you get it, the federal government's not going to just start handing you contracts. You still have to understand the ins and outs of federal procurement. And a lot of the websites that were provided earlier today are very beneficial, but you know, knowing the ins and outs and you know, learning what the federal customers are looking for, that's a key element as well. And so once again, as Rebecca said, I've been dealing with federal procurement for over 20 years. I was in the Navy previously, so if anybody ever has any questions or looking for any tips, I'd be more than happy to offer any advice we can give. So.
Thanks, everybody, for attending. Thanks to our panelists for being here today. We plan other events like this later in the year. Look for our website for those announcements. And Bill Freeling is here from the Freelance Star. It's been very helpful at getting the word out on the Business Insider. Karen, do you have anything
No,
to say?
but thank
to
you,
wrap up?
Richard, and thanks to the panelists. I think we have